Hey, you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Ali, your favorite eccentric SLO-mad. And as promised, I am here to break down how you can live in different countries for $12,000 a year, $15,000 a year, whether it's $1,200 a month pension or $1,000 a month pension, or savings or retirement, or that's what you get for passive income, or you've got 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 saved, and you're like, can I move abroad with that kind of money, or at least take a first 1 year sabbatical? And you're like, how do I do that? I'm going to start giving you some countries. We're going to break down what your expenses would be. And this is keeping it on a basic level. Of course, you can spend more. It's always easy to spend more. But can you get by with 12,000 to 15,000 a year? And the answer is yes. So I'm going to give you my first two for today's video are going to be Vietnam and Thailand. We're going to start with Thailand because I happen to be in Thailand. And so I want to make sure that you guys just get a view of how people are. You're seeing folks post on YouTube and Instagram and different things, all these wonderful things about these countries, and they're living in these places for dirt cheap. They're like $400 and $500 a month, but that's for housing. That doesn't account for everything else. So you're like, okay, well, what about everything else? Because in the end, I'm spending $3,000 a month. I'm spending $2,400 a month. Yes, it adds up, and it adds up quick. So I do not want to be the person that sugarcoats it and makes you think that everything is, so easy and it's so cheap, because you can literally be spending in some of these places that should be very inexpensive. You could be spending the same amount that you would be spending in, let's say, Texas, right? So does it really benefit? I'm going to say yes, because more times than not, moving and exploring different cultures around the world is more than just about spending the money. It's more than about saving money. It's about broadening your horizon. It is about exploring the rest of the world. It is about learning to be empathetic and accepting of people around the world. It is saying to yourself, you know what? I want to learn more. I want to be a more well-rounded global citizen. So it's not always just about the money, but in this video, we're going to break down how you can enter into one of these two countries or both and survive with $12,000 or $15,000. Now, you guys, the first rule to do this is discipline. Okay. Discipline first, to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, that notification bell so you know when I post another video, and give me a comment. Let me know where you are in your personal journey and if this is helpful for you. Okay, so the first I'm going to say is discipline, you guys, because quite honestly, when you get to another country, especially if you've never been, you're going to splurge a little bit. So I'm going to say, if you have never been to either one of these places, please first maybe take a trip and get all of the touristy things out of your system. Once you do that, then we can reel it back in it, and you can live like you do in the States. Because in the States, how often do you go to an amusement park? Do you do that every month? How often do you go to some, the escape room? Do you do that every month? No, a lot of times you don't. A lot of times you do those things maybe 3 or 4 times a year. So those are things that you can budget in. I'm going to tell you right out of the gate what we're going to include in our list that fit within that $12,000 or $15,000 budget for the year. It is going to be housing, utilities, which include electric and water, food, whether you're eating out or grocery shopping, your hygiene, clothes, visa, or initial entry visa, data for those cell phones, and transportation. So I'm going to include all of those things within that $12,000 or $15,000 a year budget. Okay. Again, this is tight. This is only for if you are traveling to these countries and you're going to kind of try to fit in them. You're going to go probably a little bit over those budgets when I add the last two things that you're going to have to consider for both of these countries. So let's get to it. Chiang Mai, I think it's one that is quite easy to say within that 12,000 a year range. Hua Hin, Pattaya, Phuket. And I know everybody's like, you cannot live in Phuket yes, you can. You just need to find a local and rent from a local person. Yes, you can. And you have a full house. So yes, you can. And then last, Bangkok. You can do the same in Bangkok with some of these high rises and stuff like that. But here's the caveat, you guys. We are going to look at short-term lease versus long-term lease. So a lot of times when you see these great prices, off the wall, oh my God, these condos are beautiful. They've got a jungle gym on the rooftop, a basketball court, infinity pool, the restaurant on the inside, a 7-Eleven. You know you winning when you got a 7-Eleven. It's got all this stuff. Oh, but it's got paper thin walls. It's $400, but it's, it's 25 meters square, 21 meters square. That is teeny. So I'm going to be basing this on studio to a 1 bedroom, 27 meters square to 40 meters square. 40 meters squared is actually a nice size. 35 meters squared is actually a pretty decent size when you're talking about maybe short term, like your initial apartment when you're going to a place. Okay. But it makes a difference because 27 meters squared with no cooktop in the kitchen kind of plays a part in whether or not it's a place that you would be living in or just sleeping in. So then you want all the other accommodations. What are those things that are going to be things that you're going to use? If you're a person who's a homebody, you're going to probably want a little bit more space. So you're going to have to decide if you can fluctuate on some of the other things to increase your housing budget, or if you're going to need to make some more money or save a little bit more money so that you can make sure you get the place of your dreams, or at least your starter house. The second thing is, as a part of that, is doing some legwork, doing some footwork, and getting out there and starting to look for homes, but do it in off season. Okay, so those are going to be my tips. So let's get started. So for a short-term lease in Thailand in those respective cities versus a long-term lease, I'm going to say you can get a long-term lease studio or 1 bedroom for around $500. You really can. But you're going to have to do 6 months to a year, and most likely 1 year with at least the first maybe 1 or 2 months deposit. That's just keeping it real. Now, they don't do credit checks here. They don't do none of that. They don't even check see if you got a job. They just want you to sign a lease and say you're going to pay. Now, where you going to get that at in the States except a hotel? Okay. All right. You can do that. Or I have seen on Airbnb, if you start with your rental in off season or in one of these smaller, the community area, a little bit, maybe 20 minutes walk from the BTS, which really isn't that far, but a little bit off of the BTS or MRT line, you're going to find some of these rates, but also going in some of the different social groups and looking for local agents that show you around and help you get accommodations. So you're going to want to do that. And I would say short term, on average, the lowest that I have seen is about $650 per month, excluding your utilities. All right, so 500 to 650 is doable. Okay. Next up is your utilities, water and electric. Usually your electric is supposed to be around 6 or 7 baht. Oftentimes they charge you 8 baht, which is about 25 cents per watt. That's not that cheap when you think about it. When you think about what we pay in the States, we try to get 12 cents per watt, 13 cents per watt. So 25 cents per watt is kind of high. But again, the way that their apartments are set up, if you have a smaller unit, you're going to use a little bit less electricity. So keep that in mind. So you spend around, on average, it could be around $50 a month. Most people report much, much less than that. But on average, let's just say 60 with your electricity and your water. Okay. Next thing I'm going to say is food, because I feel like between your accommodations, the next highest thing in your expenses is usually your food. So accommodations and food, those two things can make or break you, right? Food becomes a big deal if you are a person, whether you're cooking at home, how you cook at home versus how you eat out and where you eat out. Let me tell you guys, in any of these places, you literally could go to 5-star restaurants all the time, every single day, have coffee like Starbucks every single day, and have $1,000 a month food bill. It just blew your budget out of the water. If you don't want to do that, don't do that. But you gotta have some discipline. You gotta write some things down, and you're gonna have to make a few sacrifices. Okay, so how are people doing this? How are people literally managing $200 and $300 a month? And let me throw this caveat. I don't recall if I said this earlier. This is per person. So don't come with 4 people in the family talking about, Ali, you said we can do this for $12,000 in a year. You can if you're living out in the boonies somewhere. I'm going to keep it real. Yeah, you can get a house probably for $300, and then buy local, and you can finagle it. You can always add more if you got more people. Okay. So if you are a coffee person, you gotta have a smoothie or something like that every morning. That's going to range $2 to $3, maybe $5, depending on where you go every day. If you need to do that, if you're having a coffee every day, 65 baht, something like that, at 85, most likely you'll see 100 baht. That's almost $3. That's about $3, every day for a coffee. You add that up, it adds up at the end of the month. Then you get your food. So when you see a lot of people saying that they're eating for $1 or $2, 40 baht to 80 baht, it is true. I literally got a plate of food the other day at one of the food courts. If you're into food courts, and I mean they've got a plethora of options, food options. I have less because I'm plant-based. But I literally paid 43 baht for a huge plate of rice and three other vegetarian sides with it, and I was super full. Like I got too much food. It was 43 baht. That's like $1.15, $1.20, something like that, right? And then if you get a drink, you can get a water. I mean, if you really want to just survive and you want to, get to a place and start working on how you build, that's a way to do it. If you want to do some grocery shopping and make food at home, I'm going to be the first one to say that I feel like in some instances, shopping at the store, especially in Thailand, you're going to spend more money doing grocery shopping than you will if you just go get a meal when you're hungry or go to 7-Eleven when you're hungry. And don't be fooled, 7-Eleven is fantastic, but y'all, you can end up spending $8 easy, and you won't even spend $8 because you'll be like, oh, it was under 200 baht, or it was under 250 baht. 250 baht is $8. 300 baht is like $9 to $10. Okay, just so you know, right? So yeah, you can go in and get the little sandwiches for 32 baht or whatever. And they heat it up for you, get yourself a drink or whatever, and that becomes a meal. You can do that as well. But I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to eat at 7-Eleven. I don't want to eat no food court, a cheap food court every day. I want to go to the restaurant, or I want to fix meals like I do at home. You can. Just understand that that is going to increase your budget. Okay? So those are the top things, housing and food, that can skyrocket you or keep you balanced, one of the two. All right, next thing I'm going to say is hygiene and clothes. I usually say at least budget in something for if you need to pick up, socks, or you want a new outfit, or, when you're in these places, it's not like you're getting a whole lot of outfits and stuff, but there are a lot of places that have cheap things, and I'm a thrifter, so I was thrifting when I was in hygiene, toothpaste, contact solution, lotion, all that kind of stuff you need to buy. And in some instances, it can be the same price as what you're paying in the States. So you're going to want to budget that in. I'd say at least $50 a month for those types of side things. If you know that you spend a lot on facial care, hair care, things like that, you're going to need to make sure that you budget. This is just for the basics. Okay. The next thing on the list is visa. This is very important. In order to get into the country, in most of these countries, you've got to know what the visa rules are. So for Thailand, we get 60 days visa free. So you don't have to pay anything. But if you are going to sign a long-term lease and you want to keep your expenses low, what do you want to do? You want to stay there longer. So how do you do that? We get a 30-day extension for 1,900 baht, which is about $59. So that's $60 every 90 days. So that's 4 times a year. You're going to have to pay that. And then you need to kind of start thinking about long-term visa options, because you may encounter some pushback with immigration. I've heard it. I haven't dealt with it because now I have a long-term visa. So some of the things I want you to think about is the DTV, which is $340 for 5 years. Basic DTV, which is a 5-year visa, 180 days per stay, is $340 for 5 years. Do the math, y'all. Next is a retirement visa if you're over 50. Then they have a myriad of other visas that you can consider, longer-term visas and things of that nature. So take a look at those if you know you want to stay longer, and or if you want to work. So you want to make sure you also have the right kind of visa for that. But we're not counting those long-term visas in this calculation. We are only counting the extra 30 days. The last 2 things are data for your cell phone, which is the highest amount usually is 500 baht, which is about $15. That's unlimited data, which is what I'm on right now, so it works great. Right? And the last thing is going to be transportation. So let's base it on if you were to rent a scooter for about $80 a month, and that's like a price you'll find on the islands and in smaller places. You'll find somewhere around that $80 to $100 a month. It may be even more than that. But even if you were doing something like public transportation, BTS, the MRT, the buses that run through the city, you're spending somewhere about $1 for one way in Thailand. Then add in Grabs and Bolts. So depending on which city, FYI, in Phuket, Grab has a minimum of 200 per ride. Doesn't matter if you're going 5 minutes or 30 minutes. It has to start at 200 on Grab. That's just, and it's only in Phuket. I want to just make you aware of that. You guys are probably like, oh my God, it's only $6. It's only $6, but it adds up. The other thing, in addition to discipline, is also realizing that you've got to change your mindset And that based everything on, well, in the US, I would be paying $100. Yes, in the beginning, you're going to do that. But eventually, you're going to realize, okay, I'm basing it on paying $100 in a place that I don't live. You're going to eventually change your mindset. Okay. So those are some of the things. The last two things that are not included in this, but you're going to have to consider making sure that you add these is border runs, the expense for border runs, and entertainment. You notice we didn't have any entertainment, any tours or anything included in that. You're going to want to make sure that you have on a little bit. And maybe that's what you have little side hustles or, whatever you're working towards, or you sit still for a while. Either way it goes, you're going to have to figure some of those things out. So on the low end, you would be spending about $965 to $1,000 a month. That's the low end, living like a local, but living in, condo style housing, or if you find a, 2-bedroom, 2-bath house or 3-bedroom house, you can find those. Look it off season. So that's going to be Thailand. So make sure you click that notification bell, click the subscribe button, and so you'll know when I post any new videos and break these down. If this is helpful, please tell me in the comments. Again, if there's a place that you want me to do a breakdown on for you, please let me know. And that's it, you guys. That's it for today. You guys know I'm going to get out of here. Doodles and noodles, peace and hair grease.